What is going on, guys? Super excited to have you here. I'm Dakota. I'm the CEO of Royal Lions Group. I'm going to ask, before we even get into all of this that we got going on, I would like to at least have you get some sort of a notebook out or some sort of notes, something like that, because there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to be covering, and you might want to be writing down not just what we have here, but as I'm kind of calling out different modules to different stacks, you're probably going to want to go ahead and write that stuff down, depending on your current situation. Specifically, I'll just be specific. If you're going around like anywhere under like $2 million a year, then you're going to want to basically just follow along and probably take notes. So before I dive into this, I just kind of want to explain how we got here. I started personally in the construction industry, and I grew my construction company fairly quickly digitally. And I don't just mean marketing. I mean, I was basically measuring different types of gutter systems from the satellite and then kind of flipping them in different cities, subcontracting, etc. Basically, we found out that marketing was obviously the key to scaling, right? However, what we did also find out was that as we were marketing, there was a lot of, let's just say, numbers that we were lacking. That being said, we ended up scaling a few companies across the nation, and we took them from 2 million to about 10 million a year. And like I said, we were doing, everything was great, everything was awesome, and we just ended up kind of finding out that there was way more problems that we did not actually account for. And it's kind of funny because right now there's a lot of marketing agencies, there's a lot of software companies, a lot of different types of third-party systems, and third-party systems are lacking in a lot of different things as well. And we're going to jump into that. We're going to jump into the problems. We're going to jump into all of this. So some of the issues, just going to go over these and elaborate a little bit. Cost, paying marketing companies, software companies, etc. Technical debt, third-party integrations could be, just all around technical debt between the software. Organization, there's typically no organization because everybody's using a different module. So you've got different employees using some, administration using others, maybe project managers on this. It just depends. Your marketers on a different platform. It's really hard to keep track of things. Structure being, basically your set of rules, guidelines, etc. Control, not having a lot of control, that is a huge problem. Basically, if you need something done, not being able to actually go in and make that happen, that's kind of an issue. Being like a custom module, or you need something that you don't have available using like third-party apps. Reporting, KPIs are a huge deal. They're literally like what makes the business scale. And that was what I was going to get into. Essentially, we thought it was the marketing that made it scale, but we found out later on it was really the KPIs. Unfortunately, the KPIs are no good unless you have the rest. So that's kind of how we configured that. But KPI failure, if you've got a bunch of different apps, some of you guys might not have any apps at all, but if you have a bunch of different apps that are going on, it's really hard to have all of them talking and working at the same time. API failure is a common problem. It can just be like leads coming in but not registering, stuff like that. Architecture. Your entire business needs to be designed in some sort of architecture. You need to be able to have that playbook. And I don't just mean like words in the playbook like some people. I'm talking about like a business plan. I'm talking about actual architecture, like drawn out, huge. That's one of the things that we do because it's literally the map. So, and then time, obviously, a big problem is time. The amount of time that's been spent on putting things in, like data, etc. You guys as business owners, just spending way too much time on these things when you should be spending more time working on the business and with your family and less time working for the business. So now that you kind of have an understanding of where we're coming from with these problems, I'm going to jump in. So the third-party apps is great. A lot of people don't even have their business digitized, but a lot of these right here can all be done in different types of apps. I'm going to go through them. So, for instance, the local listings platform that we used to use, it was called SynUp. And this is where you kind of want to take notes and write stuff down. SynUp was it's a great platform. It literally will put your business on like 30-something different local listings. It helps you with review generation and like responding, etc. to different reviews. Your search engine optimization, there's a bunch of different platforms for that, but essentially most of the time, that's going to be done through your web development. Paid ads, X is one of them. That's kind of the main one, actually. They use what they claim is AI, but it's not real AI. It's really just machine learning. If anybody tells you that AI is or brings AI into something, it's not really AI, it's machine learning. Artificial intelligence does not exist. So the closest thing to artificial intelligence is called GPT-3. And then they've got another system they're working on called Codex, which is basically where you can talk. You're going to be able to talk to the machine, and the machine's going to basically translate that into code, which is super dope. So anyway, machine learning bots. So basically, in a nutshell, if you're looking at different types of machine learning bots, we're looking at being able to talk on like social platforms or on the website, etc. Those things there, though, we want those to be able to communicate with our traffic coming in so that they can obviously convert to leads. So social media, we typically use platforms like, oh, I'm sorry, you know what, machine learning, you're going to want to go and you're going to want to use a platform called ManyChat. That's a solid platform for that. Social media, you're going to want to use what's called Cloud Campaign or Hootsuite. Hootsuite is more expensive. It's a little too expensive, honestly. Cloud Campaign is definitely a better one. Basically, it's going to allow you to schedule out everything at one time and not have to mess with as much, but you're going to get all your analytics in one shot from all the different social platforms. LinkedIn, Google, my business, obviously, Facebook, etc., Instagram, whatever. So you're going to want to use something like that. That's going to kind of help your business grow. Promotional bots is like we used to use, this is all stuff we used to. Don't do it anymore, but we used to use what was called Flow Up or like Text Flow or Send in Blue. And basically what this is this is going to be all your promotional stuff. So text messaging, emails, voicemail bots, etc., all that stuff. Huge for if you want to run different types of campaigns with that. You know, if you're a contractor, you're going to want to run voicemail drops. If you're a restaurant, you're going to want to run text drops. So web development, obviously you need to have a website, you got to have all that stuff done, your SEO, etc., all in one. So you're going to want to use either, a lot of people use Wix and stuff. We don't do that. You can use a really awesome system called There's a Lot There, and they have the ability to kind of like show you different types of trainings. Really cool system, and it's got a decent SEO platform with it. Or you can use WordPress and stuff too. I don't recommend WordPress. The reason why is because WordPress requires outside third-party plugins, right? So now you're going like third party to another third party to it, like, you know what I mean? I guess that'd be like a fourth party, but the problem is that when you're using different plugins, it really can have a big problem on what you have going on. For instance, if you add a plugin now keep in mind, these plugins aren't designed by WordPress. They're designed by outsiders, so like different developers. So like if you have a plugin from here and a plugin from here, and these two developers have a cool plugin, but then these plugins don't mesh, the code can get all screwed up, and that's a problem. So I don't really trust that stuff. Adobe Design, if you don't have the ability to do Adobe Design, this is actually somebody you really got to hire an Adobe designer, like someone who knows Adobe XD, Adobe Premiere, Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, etc. Like we use Dreamweaver as well. Most people don't, but it's just basically a way to convert pictures to code in a sense. Pretty cool setup, but Adobe has a lot of really awesome products to offer. But if you don't have that, you can use, like, if you want to edit videos and stuff, you can use what's called V.io. That's a pretty awesome one. I think Gary Vee and them use that. Your e-commerce, people use Shopify or Ecwid. Again, great systems. They do what you need. I think Ecwid is actually built into Ucraft on the website side. Your pixels are going to be just that you're tracking for all your different stuff. So tracking would be, Facebook ads or whatever, Google ads, etc. You want let me explain why you want pixels. So back in the day, the way that it used to work is that you would basically throw a pixel on a website and it would just track whoever's there, and it would be super simple and it was great. And then the privacy laws changed with Apple and stuff. And then now they've done away with the pixels, but they're still called pixels. What they're actually called now is aggregated events. I just want to write that. Aggregated events are where basically you're going to take the code, bring it in, but then you're going to register the domain, verify it, and then you're going to create the aggregated events, which will be done manually. And then you're going to wait up to like 72 hours for it to get approved. And that will basically go ahead and take care of the privacy issues with iOS. It's not really too complicated at all, really. But application, if you don't know how to build apps from scratch, I definitely recommend that you use what's called Bubble.io. It's like a drag and drop application builder. Pretty cool. They have native. Now I'll explain what native is. Native is like basically mobile applications between iOS and Android. That's like an easy way to do it. Most people will use what's called React Native, and React Native will convert what is on the web to that. Now, as far as e-learning goes, there's platforms like Kajabi, Thinkific, stuff like that, where you can train your staff on these systems. However, I just want to explain that when it comes to that, you really want that to be inside of an in-house type of system. You know what I mean? If you're going to be training, it really should be in-house instead of on like a web module. Recruiting. So we already went over review generation. So as far as recruiting goes, I have that listed as marketing. There's not, I mean, you can use different recruiting sites, which you're already aware of, but in my opinion, the best thing you can do is just run paid ads for recruiting. If you don't know how, we're actually bringing in a recruiter as we speak. So I'm excited about that because right now recruiting is like the biggest issue out there. So next what we want to do is, and keep in mind that I'm going through these things, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to explain how all of this is going to kind of intertwine into one. So definitely try to bear with me when it comes to this stuff. So we're going to be going from marketing, we're going over to the operations side of the business, right? So as far as the operations go, I don't have to explain to most of you what a CRM is. You know what it is. It's where all your customers are going to be, and it's where you can collect data, etc. VoIP is basically your phone system. A lot of people will use. So actually, let me back up the CRM. So when it comes to CRM, if you're like a restaurant, I forgot I was going to give you these things. So as far as the CRM goes, you're going to want to use like a system. Like if you're a restaurant, you're going to want to use Toast, or you're going to want to use Clover. If you're a construction company, you're looking at using like Job Nimbus or AccuLinks, and so on and so forth. So I could name a whole bunch of stuff on that, but that's kind of a broad area. If you're like a service-based company that does like maintenance, or you're gonna want to use like Service Titan. You follow what I'm saying? So anyway, so VoIP, we're looking at what's called Grasshopper. Grasshopper is a great phone system for being able to set up and forward to different people in the business. Your POS, most POS systems, again, actually Clover and those are also POS systems, but Square is a good POS system, Stripe. So just keep in mind that typically these will come with whatever you've got for a CRM, but it just depends. Some people will use their banks too because they also have these as well. Now I'm going to break down. So inside of the operations, we have our administration, our fleet. As far as fleet goes, a lot of people will use Verizon. They've got a really good fleet system. Allows you to track the trucks, GPS, stuff like that. And you've got your inventory module, your purchasing module, purchasing or ordering, depending on if you have to order materials, stuff like that. Your documentation. Some people use DocuSign. Some of these systems have documentation in-house. You've got your employees. So they use, a lot of people will use outside services, but there's also a system called Gusto, which is like a self-serve platform for the employees. It's pretty cool, pretty easy. Sales, some people use Salesforce. Communications should be inside of a CRM or a system that you're using typically. If not, a lot of people use Microsoft Teams, stuff like that. So production, field technicians or field service. Like I said, Service Titan's a good one for this as well. Distributions, if you're a warehouse. Internet of Things. So I like Internet of Things. It's pretty cool. So Internet of Things is a broad term because if you're a warehouse and you're distributing, like Amazon, for instance, part of their Internet of Things is not just what they're walking around with, but also the robots, right? There's actually a really cool concept behind this too. I'm gonna explain if you stick around. But Internet of Things is going to be like robots that are moving things in a warehouse, or let's say CNC machines in a machine factory, or the handhelds if you're in a warehouse type setting. But Internet of Things is kind of just whatever it is, like hardware and software in one. And then project management, and I don't have to explain that. Project management is pretty simple. So this stuff here, okay, all of this, and these are all different types of platforms that you can use. It gets super complex, and it's going to, and I want it to be complex for you because I want you to understand just how complex it is, because we figured out that it was the wrong way of doing things. A lot of that was due to the technical debt. It just started building up with all the different platforms. And like I said, now bear with me and come back here for a minute. Now when we're talking about structure and organization, now control, we can't control all these different platforms because they're platforms that are built by other people and we can't access the code. They're not what's called open source. So now you have a system that we can't, if we want to request something, it's like, oh, request a feature. It's like, why? We're developers. We should be able to just decode it and get it done with. I've ran into this with companies like AccuLinks and stuff too, where they're like, oh, we're not going to give you access, but it doesn't even matter because I can just access through the back door. So most people can't do that though. So anyway, structure, control, reporting, like I said, all of these things. Now I'm going to get into the reporting aspect as well. Now, API failure, now you've got all these these apps, and you can use a system called Zapier. Zapier is basically just a big, giant API hub. And the API is what connects each platform to each different system. And again, that gets super complex because they call this ITTT. So if this, then that. Now you've got boom, 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 all these different platforms that all got to talk. And that's why API failure is so common. So jumping over to the KPIs, the key performance indicators. This is an algorithm that we created. Not going to get into it right now, but just understand that this algorithm, in a sense, creates a number. And I'm going to explain why that's important here in a minute. But it creates a number to each lead that's coming in. Now start to picture your marketing going in through here, your different types of marketing coming in, flowing through your operations, right? Now we're going over to the reporting side and we have, and now we've got our KPIs. So this number here, which is basically the sum of this equation, okay, that number gets assigned to each customer. And it's super important to understand why. But before that, we've got, I want to go through. So you typically should have what's called a KPI dashboard. Now, when it comes to like CPI, so cost per click, cost per visual, or cost per sale, if it's like e-com, stuff like that. And then you've got your cost per acquisition, obviously. So I went down here because I want to explain this before I forget that there's a system called DataBox, another platform that you can integrate. DataBox will give you these numbers and you can kind of add these numbers into everything else. Accounting, invoicing, expenses, a lot of that can be done with QuickBooks, which is what a lot of people use. A lot of older people use it. So anyway, sales closing percentages. You should be able to get these from your sales platform or your sales module, but this has to be involved in this because we need to, like I said, be able to calculate all of this at one time. Your lead sources is going to be basically, actually, DataBox will do that as well. Your lead sources, so like Google, it could be door to door, it could be whatever, right? You can take the DataBox and build that module out. It could be restaurant sales. It could be business to business sales. It doesn't matter. You can kind of build that, and then you can build the API in there, make that work. Callbacks and cancellations. I have this here because I feel like it's super important that we have the ability to report, like have the report on this, because we need to know, and this is what I'm trying to get into, and I'll just go through. So planning and budget, I'll just go through this quick. You should have a planning module and a budgeting module because you want to be able to set goals that you hit and be able to make sure that throughout this you're hitting those goals, obviously, because that's projections. And so with all this being said, the thing is you want this number, okay, which is going to have all of this together. You want to have a specific set of numbers there. So when it comes to callbacks and cancellations, which is what I was getting at, you want to know not just like, okay, my customer has a number assigned, but also I want to know who the sales guy is. Okay, I want to know where the lead source came from, right, for that customer. Because, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's just say you're a construction company and you've got leads coming in from Google, leads coming in from Facebook, leads coming, whatever, right? Let's say you've got Miss Smith and Miss Jones, and Miss Smith and Miss Jones came in. One came in from Facebook, one came in from Google. Now, these two got over and they went over to these sales guys, right? Now, let's say that one of them didn't go through and one did and ended up being a job. Well, if we go back and we start measuring the next five, let's say we have five that came in from here, five that came from here, and they got split up, and now this, sales guy Nate and sales guy Jimmy, okay, are going out to those sales. We need to be able to measure those customers' numbers, figure out where they came from the source, see if the problem is in the source, and be able to measure, like if let's say they don't close, we need to be able to measure where they came from, that source, who they were in front of, like the sales guy, and that's what will basically. This is one of the ways that we can get ahead of problems that can become big problems, right? And we can nip them right in the ass right off the gate. If let's say our sales guy needs more training, it could be that it could be not only that he needs more training, but maybe he's not being able to get in front of these people the right way, depending on like the lead source. Maybe there's something involved there. Maybe the lead source is like in the ghetto or something. Just all of this stuff that we need to be able to see in our KPIs. You need to have a dashboard that kind of shows all of that. So all of these things together, I'm going to kind of reiterate and go back through. You've got all these different third-party apps, and here's what we realized. We realized that fuck that. That was way too much. It got way too complicated, way too fast. The tech debt got through the roof, and we were spending way too much time. We were spending way too much time trying to fix this, automate it, and get everything situated for the client, and also being able to maintain it. Now, that's also a lot of work. So, as well as the marketing, I mean, paid advertising, SEO, etc. So, what we did was we started searching for a solution that would be everything under one roof. It's like a lot of people are like, okay, well, why would we want that? Because we're looking for somebody that is good at this or good at that, like a specific software. Here's why. We looked at different we looked at different software that these bigger companies were using, such as FileMaker, NetSuite. I think there's one, it's called Acumida, something like that. And what we found is all of those were called, and they're called ERPs, and it's an all-in-one system, but the entire marketing side was not there. It was gone. So all you had was this, and you have this. And it's like, okay, well, we can't get accurate measurements on this. If we don't have our cost per lead, if we don't have what it's costing us for our paid ads, what we're putting in for search engine optimization, just all these things, we don't have this entire section. We no longer had a cost issue because it was all under one roof and it was per user. So tech debt as far as the cost issue goes, it was less costly for us, right? Which means it costed less for the client. So the tech debt was also reduced because we didn't have all these third-party apps. Everything was organized into one. We had structure. We have control because it's open source, meaning our developers, like our Python developers, can go in because this is written in Python and JavaScript. We can go in and we can go ahead and edit and customize everything as needed for the client. All the reporting is there because we have everything through and through. We have no API failure because it's all done through the same system, the same application. As far as architecture goes, that's, we can draw up the architecture based on the modules that we're going to go ahead and customize. And as far as time goes, you don't have to worry about the time aspect, end up handling this. So now, as consultants, we were able to figure all this out and go through, make this happen. But we also decided we were going to come up with a new way to charge because we were charging for these services separately. Again, cost to the client. We were charging for these services separately and these services separately. And then we were finding that without everything working as one, and we couldn't really scale it because if we're charging for this stuff here, it's like we have a set price and then we end up scaling these companies and then we get screwed too because we're not making what we should be making. But at the same time, they're also getting screwed because everything's in a set pricing and not everything works for that, for a $100 million company or a $750 million company versus a $1 million or $2 million company. So we're like, all right, how can we do this? And that is when we came up with this equity concept, right? Where once we go ahead and we get it situated, which I'm going to explain that now, we do charge for the initial consultation. The reason why it's completely refundable. We do give the money back. We just need to make sure that you guys are going to show up. We're not trying to waste our time or waste your time. We have, a zero tolerance for bullshit. So now, once that's done and everything is set up, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do that consultation and see what we can build out for that architecture. Now, once that is set up, we will go ahead and discuss the payment for that architecture. It's going to take us roughly just to design it, not even build it, but to design it. But we're looking at a couple of days, about 72 hours, to be able to have that all set up and designed. Now, once that's done, we go ahead and we start to, we'll go ahead and we'll discuss a 12-month contract where we come in on equity, okay?
It won't be any more than 5%, but it can't be less than $2,500 a month. So if you're a small company, you're going to get stuck paying $2,500 a month, which is dirt cheap compared to what you would be paying just for any one of these alone, let alone what we're doing. And we're doing it in bulk, and we've got it all configured and set up. So what we are going to be for the next 12 months, 12-month contract equity for that 12 months. Once that 12 months is up, we do an assessment. If we continue to go forward with the contract, then we just keep that, we keep scaling. As we start off at around 4 or 5%, depending on how small you are. If you're a company that's doing a lot more, obviously we're looking at more like 1 to 2%, or for all of these services, and for us to be right there on call consulting and being able to have all of this done as needed. So the next thing though is that on the assessment, if you decide that after that 12 months is up, because you got to understand too, we also have to migrate data. So we're doing basically a digital architecture, then we're doing a actual build out, then we have to do data migration, and then we also have to train as well. So it's kind of about 6 months. And then throughout that process, and then we go ahead and like I said, this is why it's not really for smaller companies. This is not a quick fix to your problem. This is we're going to build you a foundation that you're going to be able to scale on forever. Done.